really tough few years, country, for so many people.
The Labor Department is expected to report today the consumer prices jumped 8% from 12 months earlier and by a sharp 0.6% from September to October. Gas, of course, is among the items that's been getting more expensive. Gas is $3.80 a gallon this morning, says the AAA. But down 11 cents in a month. A year ago, gas was $3.41 a gallon. That's according to the AAA. This is AP News. And now, who won't show up at the G20 summit in Indonesia next week? The AP's Karen Shamas is overseas with this story and some background.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin will not attend the Group of 20 summit in Indonesia. The news that Putin would not attend the G20 meeting was announced by an Indonesian government official. The move would enable the Russian leader to avoid a possible clash with the United States and its allies over the war in Ukraine. The summit would have been the first time President Joe Biden and President Putin were together at a gathering since the start of the Russian war in Ukraine. The event will take place on the Indonesian island of Bali and will start on November 15th.
Drinks are on the house at this year's UN climate talks, and the price of food will be slashed in half, says Egypt Foreign Minister, following complaints from delegates that they were struggling to get food and water during the event. I'm Rita Foley, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now your WCPT 820 weather update.
Here's the latest Chicago weather update. We'll see skies becoming mostly sunnier for today with a high in the mid-70s. Breezy south winds up to 20 miles per hour, gusting as high as 30. Tonight, a slight chance for rain showers here late, mostly cloudy, high near 36. By Friday, skies become mostly sunny, temperature steady early and slow fall through the day. Then on Saturday, slight chance for flurries, cloudy, high 39. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Buchitsky. Currently, it's 61.
WCPT 820 AM is proud to announce that we have been recognized as an LGBT business enterprise through the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce and our local LGBT Chamber of Commerce of Illinois.
To be certified as an LGBT.
What time are we going to come up to Jewel?
Not only our proud ownership, but also our commitment to a
it
should be like 6:07:55.
Perfect.
Certification.
Okay, can you get Pastor?
Yep, I'm getting them right now.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
1 second.
DEI, environmental stewardship, and democratic politics.
We do more than just talk. We educate, inform, and enlighten.
And you can just have him talk because I'm already up.
Really do matter.
Our hosts are committed to our mission, as are our passionate and loyal listeners. We proudly celebrate LGBTQIA plus issues and initiatives 52 weeks a year, not just in June.
Celebrate with us.
This is a WCPT 820 Heartland Signal News Minute. Illinois Democrat Sean Casten prevailed in the contest for the redrawn 6th Congressional District.
Jim Clyburn has this theory that when parties lose their base, they lose an election, they come back and they win their base, and you go from there. But when parties lose the middle, the other party takes the middle. And what remains of that party that has lost the middle can only serve.
Miss Jackson, I'm going to turn your auto mix off just for a minute so I can hear him.
You told me that story 3 years.
Pastor?
Let me know when he's up.
Yes, testing 1, 2, 3, testing.
Hey, how you doing?
Testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3. Hey, how are you? Testing 1, 2, 3.
Great.
1, 2, 3. All right. You are the best. Thank you.
Okay. He said that was fast.
Can you hear?
We're good to go.
Okay, great.
2 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
And tell you that your social security number had been used in connection with the crime? Does this get worried that your social security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information, or instant payment. Email or
great. I got that.
Government officials to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
And I'm Holly Robinson Peete, actor, and along with Ricky, the actor for Delivering Jobs. We know that a job is empowering and still strong. Yet 81% of adults with developmental differences don't
How much time do we have, hon?
Companies that employ people with differences.
We have about 35 seconds. Are you okay with that?
Can I have another minute? I just came across something. It's not that all
Yeah,
right.
I got to do it quick. It's fine. I got you.
Okay, I'm sure you do. I'm not mad at you.
Best Buddies, Hollywood Foundation.
Okay, let me find
There
that.
has never been more opportunity to improve hiring practices and build a more inclusive workforce. Join me, Ricky Rubio, and these amazing organizations in supporting and creating pathways.
All right. We have about a minute and 10 seconds.
Thank you, dear. Thank you, dear.
This talented
And pardon me. You know what? I told you. I told you. You're like a baby to me. In a good way. In a good way.
that's delivering jobs.
Oh, you dear. I mean, you just. I've got nieces and nephews your age.
And my mom knew not to ask. So
And that's the thing.
Working.
And so when I meet their friends, they know I'm not Santita. I'm not. Don't call me by my first name. Too old.
Dad, you gotta get help.
As a family member or friend, you may be the first to notice when a veteran you love has been going through changes. Things like withdrawing, drinking more, or increased anger could be a sign of a larger health concern, but help is available.
Dad finally went to VA for one-on-one.
All right. We're going to go live.
Okay.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show from Reality Radio. You hear my printer going, finding different information for you. Call me at 773-763-9278. WCPT 820, the nation's largest radio station. Getting a little echo here. Work that out. I'm so glad to be with you today as we talk about the midterms. We're still waiting on the results. In Arizona, in Nevada, Georgia. We need to know what's happening, but it takes time. We're getting an echo, getting feedback. Okay. So, everybody, I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts?
Should be
Call
good
me
now.
at 773-763-9278. What about the idea? Wait a minute. I'm getting an echo. I'm hearing myself back. So let's work that out.
I think it's your settings. I'll text you.
Okay. So everybody, I want to know what your thoughts are regarding this election. What about young people? I mean, the red wave that was supposed to have manifested, that didn't manifest. There was a balance, but I think it's because American voters are far more nuanced than we want to really discuss. People are not purely Democrat or Republican or Libertarian. They're a mix of things, and we tend to vote on the people we like. The people we trust. The president's kind of far away from us. Even your senators, they're not your congresspersons. I mean, both congresspersons, but not your U.S. representatives. Certainly not your local and county officials and state officials. They're right here with you. So is that what happened? Can you tell me what you think happened and what do you think is happening? What do you think is going to happen in this Georgia race? That is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the Generation Zers, Maxwell Frost, Summer Lee, these young people who are more progressive and less willing to give into the dictates of the establishment. I mean, Maxwell Frost used to be an Uber driver, and he says, my leading lights are Elizabeth Warren and Senator Bernie Sanders and Jesse Jackson. When they endorsed me, that meant something to me. Mind you, he is 50, 60 years younger than they. What is he seeing? Let's talk about that. Why are these young people less willing to wait? As older people might tell them, wait for their turn. You tell me what's going on, everybody. I just want to know. Let me get two of some of these headlines on the Santita Jackson show. Chicago will have a high of 73 degrees, partly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 64 degrees, scattered thunderstorms in the NBA. The Pelicans, 115, the Bulls, 111, 129, Suns, 117, the Timberwolves, and the NFL. The Falcons will be playing the Panthers tonight. I knew we'd get it right. And in the NHL, the Wild 4, the Ducks 1. Chicago will be playing the Kings tonight. Everybody, we're still waiting on these midterms. It's very, very exciting to see what's going to happen. Election officials cautiously went into the midterms with really bracing for the possibility of harassment and hostility at some polling places. But to the credit of the Department of Justice, they started deploying security. They started watching out. Interestingly enough, this is why the gutting of the Voting Rights Act, Section 5, is so important, because pre-clearance would have taken care of that. That is what Section 5 did. Places where you historically have had problems of harassment, of racial discrimination, of any kind of discrimination, there would have been a bullseye on those places to take extra special care. We don't have that now. So, but we do have it now because we have a Department of Justice that is responding to our concerns, and that's a very, very, very good thing. So everybody, control of Congress remains undetermined as results continue to trickle in from the Senate races in Arizona, Nevada. Georgia's contest is heading for a runoff on December 6th. What's going to happen? There was a libertarian in that race. And libertarians tend to tilt right. Will that favor Herschel Walker? Call me. Text me, 773-763-9278. And I want you to meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. The Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody like and share all my morning stars. Like and share. And the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Please become my friend there and join me over on Twitter at Santita J. Those are my handles, at Santita J on Twitter, Santita Jackson and Friends on Facebook. Santita Jackson, I can't take any more friends there. They won't allow it, and they're flushing people, and that is not what I'm doing. That is the limits that are imposed by. That is a limit that is imposed by Facebook. So please do me that favor. Become my friend on Santita Jackson and Friends, and follow me on Twitter at Santita J. And everybody in the house, it could be days until a full picture emerges as votes are being counted in California, in Oregon, Nevada, Arizona. Republicans are inching toward a slim majority, but that's going to change the politics of the aspirant speaker, McCarthy, what he might have to deal with. Many people are saying that he will have to favor the hard right flank of his party. What will politics look like if that happens, everybody? Tropical storm Nicole made landfall as a Category 1 hurricane just south of Vero Beach, Florida. Early this morning, packing winds of 75 miles per hour. Ballot measures that will legalize marijuana are expected to pass in 2 states and fall in 3 others. Voters in Arkansas, North Dakota, and South Dakota rejected measures that would have allowed certain amounts of cannabis possession and recreational consumption for people 21 or older. CNN projects, however, that Maryland and Missouri will approve measures to legalize recreational marijuana use. And those are some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. I want you to call me, text me, everybody, right now. I got some of these lines open. Want to know what you think about the Georgia runoff. Who do you think is going to be advantaged there? Will it be Herschel Walker? Will it be Raphael Warnock, the sitting senator, Senator Warnock? What do you think happened with Mark Kelly in Arizona? It's a razor-thin margin. So many different scenarios that could play out. What will happen in Nevada? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And with these razor-thin margins, I think we need to pay attention to that all around the country because no one had an outright victory. Well, maybe the American people did because so many of us voted, and I think that's a good thing. But if you want to say that this party won over this one, no, the Democrats didn't get slammed, rolled over. That's for sure. But the fact is, I think that we need to dig a little deeper because Tuesday was more nuanced. So let's think about that, everybody. Call me, text me at 773-763-9278. You know, I love to not just talk about you. I want to talk with you. And I want the country and people who are listening to us all over the world, I want them to hear your thoughts because you're the one. We're talking about you this morning and what you did on Tuesday and the weeks leading up to Tuesday, the months leading up to Tuesday. We're talking about you. You're the news. Think about it that way. Flip that amount around in your brain. Hey, everybody, we have got Pastor Darius Brooks, a Grammy Award-winning singer, producer, director of the Tommies. Wow, he's done so many. We love Pastor Milton Brunson and what he did with you and Percy Beatty and opening that door, finding some of the greatest talent, some of the most gifted people in the world and giving you that platform. And boy, you all did so many great things with it, giving us the iconic songs of the modern gospel age. Pastor Darius Brooks serving in this way as the senior pastor of the Grace Central Church in Westchester, Illinois. Before you give us the good news, please give us your address and let us know how we can get that food from you, because that is what you and First Lady Deborah do with that church every week. You're feeding hundreds upon hundreds, if not a couple of thousand people a week. Pastor Darius Brooks.
Good morning, Santita, and you are absolutely right. Grace Central Church, 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois. That's right off of 290 in Manheim, right in the area of Hillside, Maywood, and Bellwood. People think we're in the suburbs, but we're right on the west side. Grace Central Church, 102. South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois, every Tuesday from 5 till 7, and every Wednesday for the seniors from noon till 2. It was around the corner, packed all the way. Yeah, on Tuesday, I'm telling you, it was crazy amazing, and we love doing it. If you know anybody who needs food, Grace Central Church, every Tuesday from 5 till 7, and every Wednesday for seniors from noon till 2. Santita, I'm excited to share this word with you. The Word of God says the Word is a lamp into our feet, and it's a light into our pathway. John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." Santita, the Word of God is a mirror. Who, he says, who is singular. So when you're reading and studying God's Word, this is what this message is going to bless those who hear today. It's important that you not believe that all of us are the same. We're not. Some people really are in it to do it, to follow it, and some just checking it out to see if it's true. Those outcomes are going to be uniquely different. First John 1:6. If we say that we have fellowship with him and yet walk in darkness, you or we, the word says, do not practice or live out the truth. I like 1 John 1:6. Not a criticism, just an observation. Ain't scaring nobody. Ain't here. Check this out, y'all. If we say that we have fellowship with him and yet walk in darkness, he says we lie and we do not practice the truth. It's kind of sort of like Santita. Somebody say, you want this job? And you say, yeah, I want it. But then when it's time to come to work, you don't get up to say, I got to go to work. Not a criticism, just an observation. Santita, I had to use for a thought this morning because I want to bless somebody's socks off. Truth proves me to me. Santita, your truth proves you to you. Whoever's under the sound of my voice, wherever you are in this life, dealing with whatever you're dealing with, your truth is going to prove your truth to you. This walk with God is not about trial and error. It's about proper processing. The key to really understanding God's word and opening the door to clarity of his promises, which seems to be elusive to so many, is the well-worn practice of obedience. The scripture makes clear over and over that the prerequisite of experiencing God is obeying him. It's kind of like a father longs for his children that they just listen to them or just trust what they say, or Santita get to their niece or nephew, and nieces and nephews says, I'm going to listen to my Aunt Santita because I know she's going to tell me something good or bring me some candy. Wonderfully, Santita, because God is omnipresent, all of our instructions for him is different. The point is, when God is speaking to me or you, Santita, when you are studying his word for you, that we individually, literally, and figuratively trust what he says for our own personal walk. Now, if you're one of these kind of people that do not believe that God's word can work, you might not want to interrupt those who do. Often people who don't see often criticize others who do. Sort of like a person who can't dance criticize the band. They can't play. One of the reasons I trust God's word, Santita, and I literally and figuratively use it for my life and my surrounding myself with people that are of like minds, is this. As I get ready to close, a good thing to remember, a better thing to do. Work with the construction gang, not the wrecking crew. Santita, God made us a promise. Prove God's word to you. And whoever's under my voice, prove it to you. I'm proving it to me. Here we'll never be disappointed. Connect your good intentions with some awesome action and context of what you believe. Honor what you believe. If you don't do it, you really don't believe it. Because truth only proves truth to me. Santita, your truth proves truth to you. To fight for your future, you must believe your truth. Maturity is going from I can't afford to I cannot afford not to. I honestly cannot go back to the beginning, but I can take today and change how I want my ending. If God has put something in your heart, follow it, then confirm it through his word.
Amen. Amen. What Reverend Evans used to say, God will never give you a vision without making provision. The way has already been made for you. It has already been made for you. So now what we have to do is make it work. It works when you work it. Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, I have to call these people's names because if we call their names, they will always live. Some of the great people, the bridges who got us across, the people who got us here, Reverend Clay Evans, Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, Father Clarence Cobb, who fed people during the Depression. No one would be turned away from the First Church of Deliverance. Really, a church that was open to everybody, straight, gay, trans, whatever you were. As long as you were human, you came in the door and Father Cobb took care of you. But all these ministers I just named did that. So I just want to thank God for them today and for so many people, for Pastor Thurston, who gave us Pastor Stephen Thurston the first and second, and Pastor Meeks, and Reverend Ackley, and Reverend Hatch, and so many, Reverend Jeanette Wilson, so many, Reverend Dr. Barbara King, who's now in glory, so many people who've done so much, Father Flaker, so many people who've done so much to just keep us going. And I thank God that with your music, now you're doing this. We love Pastor Darius Brooks from Grace Central Church in Westchester, Illinois. We have got Dr. Shanina Knighton with us today. I'm so excited that she's with us as we talk about, in these next 3 minutes, infection prevention. She helped us to see yesterday just how central it is to healthcare in America, to our daily lives. And, I didn't really, we just haven't thought about it. We're still in the midst of this pandemic, Dr. Knighton. We're still in the midst. What would you, as we go into this, we're just a couple of weeks away from Thanksgiving too. I just can't believe it. Can you give us some helpful hints about how we should handle Thanksgiving dinner? Everyone wants to put that turkey in the middle of the table. I know I do. Should we?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, that very well may be the case of wanting to put the turkey in the middle of the table. However, Just as I continue to emphasize, Santita, like the biggest thing is people talking over food and having an awareness of what it is that they're doing. And right now, that is like the number one thing, unfortunately, that people are not paying attention to, which is what it is that they're doing. Understanding that Thanksgiving is the time of fellowship, it's the time to be thankful. We have to think about our practices in regards to prepping the food. So making sure our relatives aren't licking their hands before touching the spoons, and making sure that people aren't talking over the food. And while things may be self-serve, just having best practices in place so that way everyone can walk away making sure that they're staying safe. If you are dwelling indoors, then I do encourage you to have some ventilation that's coming through your home by keeping the window open, just to make sure that it's not all the same air that's being transmitted. As we know, what was it last year, Santita, the family that ended up having Thanksgiving or Christmas, and the majority of the family was hospitalized and died, but a few. It might have been a couple years ago that happened, but we don't want something that's supposed to be such a joyous occasion to turn into a tragedy. So in order to do that, prevention has to be better than treatment, which means that hand washing or hand hygiene must prevail. Reminders to others, nothing's wrong with if you're sitting around at a table and you know everyone just finished playing the board games. It's okay to like literally have a bottle of hand sanitizer, clean your hands, and then gesture for the person that's with you to clean theirs. I've done it plenty of times and still continue to do it after passing the mic. If everyone in my table passed the mic, then essentially I'm actually the one that literally is getting the hand sanitizer. And it's interesting how you see it spread like wildfire. So I'll put hand sanitizer in somebody's hands, and then they'll look out for their another friend, and that friend will look out for someone else. And by the time you know it, everyone in our environment has already cleaned their hands. So I emphasize this just to say that this is a way for us to be able to practice safety around each other, but there has to be conscious awareness of it. There has to be a concern of that language of I love you. So because I love you, I want to take care of you. And so just as you mentioned earlier with, you know, God providing provision, right? So He provides the vision and provision in order for us to be able to do things. And so in that spirit, we have to be conscious that as we have the resources in front of us, as we have them around us, in order for us to be better, we have to be building up practices, infection prevention and control to be in the media in order for us to realize how important it is to our safety. And we should also be normalizing that it is normal to go without being sick. And in order to do that, you have to change your mindset and behavior and make sure that you're incorporating infection prevention and control into your daily lives, opposed to looking at it as a burden.
Mic drop on that. Hey, Dr. Nina, HEYDRNINA, this brilliant infection preventionist, bringing this message to us every day so we can know what to do. Think about it, everybody. Think about how you can have a safe holiday. Let us normalize wellness, not sickness and meds and things like that. No, let's stop this before it gets in the door. How about that, everybody? I love it. We'll normalize wellness. In the heart and in the head and in our politics. Let's talk about these Generation Zers, and let's talk about this Georgia runoff. I want to hear from you on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in a minute. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Just made it home yesterday.
Oh, bless your heart. And thank you for thank you, honey. Just thank you for making the space for us.
No, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for making this space.
Honor.
Okay, let me see.
It's an honor. I don't take it for granted.
Oh, I know you don't. Just let me know when you can't do it. Okay, what is this?
It's the craziest thing, Santita. So, like, for example, like next week I'm on West Coast, right? So what's the nuts is that my schedule has been so skeptical lately. Of course, I'm here the week of Thanksgiving. But it's just been so skeptical and unpredictable that as much as I want to be like, Santita, I'm going to be in town this week. Santita, like, I can do this. It's not so cut and dry, unfortunately. And so days where I think I'm not going to be available, like yesterday I was available. So, and it's not going to be like this forever. It's just that right now I'm on travel for work.
Well, you don't know how long it's going to be this way. You know? You don't know. You don't know if God's taking you.
Let me tell you why I know. I'll tell you why I know how long it's going to be this way. Because I'm trying to get all my travel out of the way before December. Because I already know these numbers is going up, which is already reflected. So I don't like to do travel in the midst of those hectic months. So that's why I say I know it's might not be over to some people, but for me.
I hear you, sweetie. I hear you. But it's tough. It's tough, and I can only imagine what you're going through because you've got family, you know? And that's a whole nother other.
And they've been like, I feel I'm so grateful and appreciative. I'll actually be where you at this week.
Oh, honey, it's just, this has been a week.
It is. I'm coming to Chicago this weekend.
Oh, wow. Let me know. I'm actually going to be in town this weekend.
It's just for a day. Me, my husband, and my kids are going to come check out some stuff. Like our dance team is in the World of Dance competition for regionals this year again. Okay. I think I told you we won last year.
Yes.
With a perfect score.
Hold on one moment, sweetie. Let me try to pull the rest of these little pieces. Who do we have, Jewel?
This is CK. Good morning.
Hey, CK, how you doing, sweetie? I know you can only stay with us for a bit, but that's so good. If you could just give us an overview of what happened, that would be a lot, okay? But we're also talking about these Generation Zers, you know, because they have really helped to change the landscape. They have helped to change the landscape.
Miss Jackson?
Yes.
So we have about 1 minute left here.
Okay.
I have everyone up so far except for Pastor Yuri. I'm still working on him.
Okay, no worries.
All right, and I'll text you when I have him up, but everyone's good. You got about 40 seconds.
Okay, and who do I have? I have Attorney C.K. Hoffler.
Attorney Hoffler, Attorney Jones, and Miss Wells.
Okay, fantastic.
And Dr. Knighton is still on as well.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay, coming in.
Stand by.
Okay. Thank you.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
To a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am free.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Let's talk about these midterms. It's midterms, because when you look at Georgia, when you look at Nevada, when you look at Arizona, the fate of the U.S. Senate in particular is still undecided. We don't know what's going to happen in the Senate races in those states. And we got a runoff in Georgia, because indeed that is how they do it. If you don't get 50% plus one vote, you have to go to a runoff. And so we will see what's going to happen in Georgia. I want to know what your thoughts are, because the Libertarian in the race, I always felt that was a fly in the ointment, for just a little fly, because Libertarians tilt right. They tilt right. Hey, I don't have any objection to Libertarians, because some of the stuff that they say I think really makes some sense. That having been said, in real politics, there's realpolitik, as my college professors used to say. It's a different kind of thing. It's a different kind of thing. Will this Libertarian, who will not be in the runoff, will his votes give the advantage to Raphael Warnock or to Herschel Walker? Now, many people say politically think the advantage will go to Walker because the Republicans will tilt and maybe fall right. But then maybe you might get heightened voter participation. And because we'll have to see. We'll see. I need to find out who voted how. Because I tell you, when I find out that 76% of white women voted for Brian Kemp in 2018, makes me wonder, how are people really voting? Really? Think about it, everybody. Call me, text me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. And these Generation Zers, Summer Lee, Maxwell Frost, these people are taking their cues and their inspiration from Bernie Sanders and from Elizabeth Warren and from Reverend Jesse Jackson. That's what they're saying. No, we look to them. What's going on? What are they going to bring to Congress? Maxwell Frost used to drive an Uber. He's had a whole lot of different kinds of jobs, a lot of different experiences. Summer Lee has pushed back against the right-wing forces that sought to push her out. She said, no, as a Black woman, I know what it's like to be marginalized. So I stand with the marginalized people of the world. And she's not backing down. No equivocating. It's going to be tough when she gets to Washington, but if you want her to stay there, you better call and make sure that she has your support and let her know it. That's the only way she'll be able to hold the line. That's the only way anyone you vote for will be able to hold the line. You have to make your presence felt in their offices. You have to send email. You must call them. Every call, every email accounts for X number of constituents. That's something that I learned from Deputy Governor Luana Peters when I worked for Congressman Gus Savage. She said, oh, no, every phone call. The congressman wants to know every phone call that comes through here, every letter, because it stands for X number of constituents. Think about that, everybody. You're the people we're talking about this morning. You're the one who's number one. Boom. I think I heard that in one of my favorite rap songs from back in the day. Hey, let's talk. What's going on? Celebrations by us, Chaparral Wells. So many, and I just want to say this. There are so many wonderful businesses like Chaparral Wells business. I've got Fanfare by Faye. We've been going to her for many, many years. We have got Kim Stratton. You've got these wonderful Black and Latino and small businesses. Please give them your business, Chaparral. I mean, because I think that is so important. I've gotten a lot of outreach from them. It is so important that they get your business. This is how they stay alive. Part of the reason you hear Chaparral here is because when she told me that 80% of her business took a hit, she lost 80% of her business as the pandemic started. I said, well, I've got to help you, but I want to help everybody because Chaparral, we've got a lot of, this is where most of us are employed, in these small businesses. Most of us are employed in small businesses. This is how we make our money. And that's very, very important. Well, I'm waiting for my snicky snacks, my food from the holiday. I can't wait.
Yes, Santita, and we are ready to bring it to you as well. So yes, right now, Celebrations by Us is taking orders for Thanksgiving. We are doing your turkeys, your mashed potatoes, your mac and cheese, your greens and green beans, as well as also your mascacholi, your dressing, whatever it is that you need for your holiday table. Don't hesitate to give us a call, 708-526-4546. 708-526-4546. We can't forget our desserts, our peach cobbler, our banana pudding, our red velvet cake, our caramel cake, our custom cookies, as well as also our sweet potato pie. So whatever it is that you need to order, we're asking everyone to order by the 19th. So give us a call at 708-526-4546, 708-526-4546. We look forward to serving you. Thank you so much, Santita.
Love it, love it, love it. I placed my order for the holidays, so I can't wait. Even though I'll be eating at my brother's, we're going to have like a juke joint party because our father loves music so much. Our mother's like, oh, this music being played. We love it. We love it. Can't wait for the holiday. Can't wait for the holidays. And mindful of those people who might be alone during the holidays. See if you can invite them. Open up your heart, open up your door to someone. Let people know that they matter. Okay, everybody, let's get to it. Let's talk about these midterms. Everyone's looking at Georgia. I mean, they're even looking past Arizona, which is kind of still a toss-up. Mark Kelly, it's not a guarantee he's going to get that seat. It's not a guarantee the Democrats are going to get these seats in Nevada and Arizona. But for a whole lot of reasons. Everyone is looking at Georgia. But we are also looking at these Generation Zers. And of course, we've got Attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, and Attorney C.K. Hoffler, chairman of the Rainbow Push Coalition, of course, legal analyst on Court TV, host on WAOK every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, Attorney Darrell Jones, co-host with Attorney Barbara Arnwine on WOL on Tuesdays as well at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. I urge you to give them your support and listen to their shows. They give you a lot of great information. Let me start with you, Attorney Jones. We look at Summer Lee. We look at Maxwell Frost. They're not the same, but they're very much Generation Zers. They're these young people who are really, who say, no, I'm looking at the progressives as my guidepost. I'm looking at Bernie Sanders. Maxwell Frost has touted the fact that, hey, the people, let me tell you who endorsed me. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Reverend Jesse Jackson. That's what excited me, which was very interesting, that he reached back over several generations to get, unmitigated, uncut, unapologetic progressives. And Summer Lee has done that too. I mean, dark money in particular, right-wing money have come after her, and they have come after her with a viciousness, as they did with Nina Turner in Georgia. In Ohio, and as they did with Reverend Jackson when he ran for president. But that having been said, she's pushed back. She said, no, as a Black woman, I understand marginalization, and I stand with marginalized people. I'm not going to back down. Wow. So what about Generation Z? People are saying that young people saved this election for the Democrats. Do you agree, Attorney Jones?
Good morning, Santita. And I absolutely agree. One of the things that we have been pushing is that, don't write off, don't underestimate the excitement that is generated in Generation Z with regards to this political election. And I go around the country and I say this all the time. Folks got to remember that when Generation Z got involved, that's when Confederate statutes started coming down. When Generation Z got involved, that's what was happening with the spark of the George Floyd marches in the street. It was Generation Z that pushed for gun control. We now have meaningful gun control legislation in the country. Folks were writing off Generation Z because they were saying, oh, the young people won't vote. They don't vote. Well, guess what? You came November the 8th, Tuesday night, and who was it that pushed that made this change, the stand for democracy? A lot of people were involved, but it was Generation Z that overwhelmingly pushed to be certain that democracy was protected. And I submit that it's going to be Generation Z that's going to be on the forefront down in Georgia, along with everyone else that's there. But we need that Generation Z to come out. One thing we know is that they've been voting here for the last one or two election cycles in historic numbers. And President Biden, even in his remarks, came back to recognize the extraordinary effort that Generation Z, what he called the young voters, voted in historic numbers for this midterm election. And I just tell people, as we hear, CK and the other guests say all the time, when you're talking about the women's right to choose and dealing with abortion and the Dobbs decision and Roe versus Wade, you're really talking about a Generation Z issue that this is what they're going to be stepping into. The environmental issues, that's all Generation Z. The student loan forgiveness, they're the ones stepping into this issue. They're the reason that you see the change in the federal legislation and what's happening from President Biden and addressing it. So Generation Z is clearly at the forefront of this fight. They're coming into their own. They're not as strong as they're going to be. But let me tell you something, Santita. People talk about the baby boomers and everyone else. It is Generation Z and the millennials that as of 2024 will be the largest, not the potential, the largest voting bloc in the United States, and they will demand to be heard. And that's why you have Summer Lee. That's why you have Maxwell Frost. And that's why you're going to have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez all talking to that young Generation Z and somewhat millennial voter. That's what that's all about, Santita. So I'm 100% on board with what they represent and what they're doing right now in the American electorate.
Hey, everybody, what do you think about Generation Z? They are more progressive and they are very aggressive, but they were, I guess, the way our parents were. I mean, because they were the Generation Z of their moment. James Bevel, believe it or not, even though Reverend Jackson is 81 now, he was the Generation Z, as was Bernie Sanders of their moment in the 60s. They were the young people who were pushing Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, pushing, and saying, "Hey, we need to push even harder." Reverend James Bevel led that flank of Dr. King's organization. There were different flanks in that organization. You had some people who were more conservative, some people more progressive, some people who really pushed real hard, like Reverend James Bevel. My parents came in to work for Dr. King under Reverend James Bevel, the man who really sparked the Selma to Montgomery March, because he and his wife, then wife, Diane Nash Bevel, actually, they were the ones who created that campaign to get the children to march, And they always felt so sad about the bombing of the children in the church basement in Birmingham, Alabama. They felt some kind of responsibility. No, the responsibility rested with those murderous persons who bombed those children in that basement. Five of them, bombed a whole lot of children. 4 died, 1 survived, and she's been struggling ever since. What about Generation Z? What about Georgia? Georgia's on our minds because, in fact, it's very interesting. Black people are saying, well, okay, it's up to us to save democracy one more time, CK. That was the NBC headline. I said, well, maybe they're not too far off from the truth. CK, what's going on down in Georgia?
Well, what's going on in Georgia is, well, we all know Stacey Abrams did not win the gubernatorial election. Governor Kemp won, and I believe one of the reasons why he won had to do with the fact that as a Republican, he did stand up against Donald Trump and Donald Trump's attempt at saying, at stealing, as some people say, the election in Georgia. He did. He turned over that evidence to the district attorney, Fonnie Willis, and there's litigation right now as a result of it. That probably meant something to some people, whether they are pro-Trump or not. So I think he gets some points from some, liberal Republicans and for some conservative Democrats just by doing that. But I do believe that Stacey Abrams could have won, but she didn't win. So that was really a crushing defeat.
Well, hold on. Hold on. Let me ask you this. What are her plans now? I mean, I know this is really fresh. Will she continue? Because I'm hoping that she and Beto O'Rourke will continue in public life. I hope this is not the last time that they will run. I hope that they will keep on going because they have a sizable constituency who need to be heard, who depend upon them to be heard.
Absolutely. What her plans are, those are uncertain. She may not run for governor, but I don't think this is the last you've heard of Stacey Abrams.
Okay.
She is much too impactful. She's much too powerful.
Right.
Her voice is absolutely needed. She's moved the needle in Georgia. And so I think this is not going to be the last that we hear of her. Will it be her last time running for governor? Maybe for now. But I dare say she's not going to sit down and just say, okay, I'm done. I did what I could do and let me move on. She's done too much. Fair Fight is a formidable organization fighting voter suppression, fighting irregularities in voting patterns, and also registering voters. She reached across the aisle. Stacey Abrams is a movement, not just in Georgia, but nationally. So I don't see her stopping now, and I hope that she won't stop. But, you got to regroup when you lose.
Absolutely.
You got to regroup.
Yeah.
Because many of us were just claiming her victory. So you got to regroup.
Well, know what? But you know what? I think she did win. And I will say this: sometimes the most powerful perch is not from elective office. I know we all get ginned up for that, but sometimes, being the most powerful, you can be more powerful out of the presidency and not in it. I can't really say that Reverend Jesse Jackson lost in 84 and 88. He won, and you're seeing it in Maxwell Frost and Summer Lee today, and in Bernie Sanders, right? I mean, and Bernie Sanders keeps on winning. He's the most popular elected official in the United States today. Stacey Abrams can draw a crowd anywhere. today.
No, absolutely.
You know?
Santita, on a personal level, as a trial lawyer, I just hate to say the word lose, but I probably have learned more over the course of my almost 37 years as a lawyer. I've learned more in cases that I've lost. There've been few, thank God, but I've learned more than the cases that I've won. I mean, Daryl, I think I can get a witness there. You hate to lose. You hate to do it. You're always shocked. You're like, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
But you go back and you learn more, and it makes you stronger, makes you better. So we have not, I'm claiming this, heard the last of Stacey Abrams, and many people supported her, will continue to support her, and support her movement because she has a movement, and her voice must be heard.
And support that movement, right? Getting people to vote and fighting voter suppression.
Getting people to vote, and fighting voter suppression. And by the way, fighting corruption. Fighting We've seen a lot of corruption when it comes to Georgia. And voter suppression to me is a form of corruption. But, we've got people challenging voters, and we've got election officials that have the right, the legal right to take people off the roll and to, subjectively make determinations with have unfettered discretion. That's problematic. So for everyone, you didn't hear it from me first, but you can hear it. Stacey Abrams is not by a long shot. This is not the last that we're going to hear from her, but she's entitled to take a break if she wants to, because for every freedom fighter and everybody who fights for justice, they need a little break too, to regroup, but then go on to the next chapter. And she can be elevated beyond where she is now.
Amen to that. Yes.
But where Santita, I just got to stay and have to run shortly. Where I'm still saying the Lord's Prayer is over this very, very close race that has resulted in a runoff between Senator Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker. My goodness. And you have to, and this is how close it was. Senator Warnock got 49.2% of the vote. And then Herschel Walker got 48.7%. You must now, we don't need to discuss anything about Herschel Walker because you all know that if you heard me speak on anything, you know that I just did not think he was fit to be senator for, Georgia or any place, period, end of discussion. We don't need to go into the reasons why. But I must say that he has run a formidable campaign, people, the millions, the billions, and all behind him, to get 48.7% of the vote. 1.927, 419 people voted for Herschel Walker. That's astounding. Now, the Libertarian candidate, Oliver, got 2.1%.
But see, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at him because they tilt right,
Yeah, but you know what's going to happen? Those people who were asleep and said, well, I think Raphael's got it or whatever, even though the tea leaves are predicting it was going to be close, they're going to get up and get to it. But similarly, for the runoff election, there are going to be forces that are mobilized to try to get every single vote, because it's got to be clear that every single vote will count in this runoff election. Every single vote. So I'm saddened that Senator Warnock has to go through this. I think he probably predicted there was a good likelihood, but he ran also a very strong campaign, raising record amounts of money, distilling the myth that some people still believe that Black candidates can't raise money and have difficulty. Raphael Warnock raised more money than many have ever seen in Georgia. So did Stacey Abrams, for that matter. So there's something to be said for that. There's a new day in Georgia. We just need to make sure, in my humble impression, that the new day makes sense and that we have somebody with sense representing the great state of Georgia. To me, it's not about power politics, it's about making sense. And Herschel Walker, to me, is not that person. But I'm just one person. I'm not speaking on behalf of an organization or a group. This is CK, living in Georgia every single day and very, very embarrassed and saddened that we had.
But don't be, because this is power politics. Well, it's only because I'm saying this, CK. We are new to power politics. We are. This is what this is. These folks don't care about qualifications. We do, because Black people have always felt that if I were the most educated, the most qualified person, then you could never deny me. They deny you all the time. They picked someone who is the embodiment. He is the embodiment of every ugly stereotype that they would reject. in a black
Santita,
man.
I buy that, but it's about qualifications. It's about so much more.
Of course it is, but look at where we are. Wait a minute, I'm pulling up the numbers that you gave to me. Raphael Warnock, 1.941 million votes. Herschel Walker, 1.906 million votes. I mean,
what in the world?
I'll tell you what in the world. And I think that if we don't understand what in the world is helping to drive this, and a libertarian in the race, libertarian to tilt right, that's the margin of victory for Herschel Walker. But the greater margin of victory are all these people who have not voted. That's why I'm hoping, CK, that we push like the dickens to get people to vote on December 6th. I've got a minute and a half for you. What is the plan?
The plan is to register more voters so that Senator Raphael Warnock can win this election. He can do it. He can take it because he's the best. He's the best senator for the state of Georgia, hands down. It has nothing. Let's just remove qualifications. Period. It's on all levels. So that's the plan, Santita. Vote, 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 like your life depended on it. Because in Georgia, it does.
CK. Oh, and I'm coming down there. What, November 27th and 28th? Girl, are you sure I need to come? I don't know if I'm coming now, y'all.
Yeah, you need to come.
You have hurt my feelings.
I mean, you need to come on down.
Girl, no.
That's why we need to repair and just come on down. That's just gotta do it. Because we're living amidst craziness. So anyway, but I have to tell you some good news though. Good news. You know, Georgians came out and said, I mean, people understood it was going to be a tight race, but people did come out and vote. Record numbers. Young folks came out in Georgia. So, you know, I was concerned about young folks because some of the voter suppressive laws sort of made it more difficult for them to vote. But I'm gladly saying that they did come out and vote. And I think that it's going to make a difference in the runoff election.
All right. Well, let's everybody get out and vote.
He's used to running. That's right. He's used to running. He's used to adversity. He can do it. He pulled it off before. He can do it again.
Even the runoffs, you know, 538, the news aggregation site said, you know, runoffs are sort of a thing in Georgia. I can't wait to hear from Attorney Jones about that. I mean, it's 50% plus one. And that is what neither of those major candidates got. And so what do you think? What do you think about this runoff? What does it mean? What does it mean? What will it mean? You know, that means the race is still on, everybody. People need to get out, get registered to vote. Vote like your life depends upon it, because these people will be able to cast votes on your life. And it will depend upon it. So call me at 773-763-9278. Meet me on Twitter at Santita J. Meet me on Facebook, Santita Jackson and Friends. And join my YouTube family, The Santita Jackson Show. Everybody, let's talk about the Georgia runoff. Ooh-wee, that's exciting. I can't wait to hear what Attorney Darrell Jones has to say about it, because they've been down there, he and Barbara Onwine, observing. They can tell us what happened down there, what's happening. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Ooh, CK, it's just too much, honey. CK, it's a lot.
CK dropped.
Okay, well,
We have Attorney Jones.
Okay, you just go on and get everybody else, and we are good. Oh, yes. Okay, thank you, Jewel. Okay, Pam Morris, I love you. Can't wait to have you back on in another few days. Okay. Giving us blessing. Everybody, like and share. Thank you so much for your support. Like and share. Pam and Miss, is it Maybelline? Love that. Oh, I love it. Jewel. And, oh, you're in Atlanta? Oh, my goodness. All right, Pam, I love it. Love it. Can't wait to have you back on next week so you can give us a blessing. Woo, there's just so much going on. Attorney Jones, we're on Facebook Live right now. What were you surprised by this, by the fact that we were going to need a runoff? Did you see this kind of split? Or you've been down in Georgia? Because, you know, there's Atlanta and there's Georgia.
And that's a great question, Santita. I tell you, one of the things that that I was concerned about was exactly what I saw happening. Is that Georgia is just such a conservative state. I recall in 2020 when we were down there pushing for voters to come out, the feeling that we weren't certain what was going to happen with now Senator Warnock, because it was so difficult to try to get the numbers that were necessary to try to balance out the conservativeness that existed in Georgia. And it just proved itself again to be very true. It's just a very red state, and that's really the bottom line. In order to have someone like a Raphael Warnock elected, you're going to have a really strong turnout of African American and voters of color. I mean, and it's got to be continual because the nature of Georgia. And again, as you said, there's Atlanta and then there's Georgia. Right?
Well, there's Chicago and there's Illinois. There's Detroit and there's Michigan. There's Lansing and there's Michigan. I mean, I think I think that in our political analyses, we forget that America has a lot of different cultures in it and a lot of different perspectives. And even within, I'm not surprised by Black people, many of us moving, not most, but many of us moving socially to the Republican Party. I can tell you some people I know who are close to me who will tell you socially I'm more, I appreciate the Republicans more. I don't like the racism, but I don't like the fact that Democrats don't come through for me. So it's a mix, Daryl. And I think that we have to embrace that. And if we can have those conversations without demonizing people, things would be much better. We had Renee who called in who said, when we're talking about abortion, that's a touchy issue. That ain't something that people just say, it's my body. It's like, no, it's your body until you want a child. Now, I mean, I'm keeping it 100 with y'all, okay? Because I know my personal feelings, though, I don't make public policy. And that for me is the issue here. Some of the greatest anti-abortion activists I have known became that after they had their last abortion. I'm just saying the hypocrisy. That's my problem with Herschel Walker. It's the hypocrisy. You opened the door for women because you didn't want to bring a baby home to your wife. All y'all were wrong in that scenario, including the woman who was laid up with you. Yes. But you didn't, so the door was open for her, so your home situation would be messed up. So so what are you talking about? Why would you do that to anybody else when you're talking about being pro-life? And you don't believe in prenatal care. You don't believe in funding, but you want to collapse the public school system. You don't want to fund preschool. I mean, get out. You don't want to feed every child. I don't care what your parents' income level is, Daryl. I think that in America, every child who goes to school should have a great breakfast and lunch. Just take that off the table.
Absolutely.
If your parent is Jeff Bezos, and if the parent is the maid who they didn't treat well in that house according to news reports, okay, feed them both great meals, the same meals. How about that? If you're gonna serve organic food to Jeff Bezos' child, give it to his maid's child. If they're gonna get 10 ounces of protein, then you give them to the other children too. Give them to everybody. COVID showed us that we are safer when everybody is healthy.
And that's without question, Santita. We know that if you're going to make the requirement that someone is to bear a child, then you should also bear the requirement that you're asking them to bear, and that is have some responsibility for helping them to care for the child if they're unable to do it. I mean, why force a person to have a child brought into the world and then, not bear any responsibility with whether or not the child is fed?
But you know what?
Whether or not the child has the ability to go to doctors.
You're right. And you need to do all of that. But please, sisters, don't get an attack of moral conscience when you know he didn't want to be with you. Just stop it. So you just need to stop that relationship before you can get a child. Yeah, I said it, Daryl. I'm going to say it. You don't have to. I'm a woman. God did not give you the power, the equipment, or the mentality to bear a child. That was given to me. Okay? So we all have to take responsibility wherein we have different levels and layers of responsibility depending upon what God made us to do, gave us the ability to do.
Miss Jackson,
Yes.
we have Reverend Yeri and
Attorney Fancher?
Yes, and Attorney Fancher's on, and we have about 30 seconds.
Thank you. Reverend Dr. Yeri, how are you?
I'm well. Good morning. How are you?
Great, great. Attorney Fancher, how are you?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you.
Fantastic. Just people need to stop being hypocritical. That's all I'm saying, Daryl. Just stop it. Just stop. Just everybody just stop.
Stand by, please.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Thursday, November 10th, 2022, and we do not have all of the results from the midterms. Be patient, everybody. It takes time. It takes time. We want an accurate counting. I think this is a good thing, and it helps us to become patient. It helps us to understand how important every single vote is. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. We used to be Air America, but now we're WCPT, the Heartland Signal. That's right, the heartbeat, the middle of America, everybody. And AM 950 Radio, my brothers and sisters to the north. Thank you, Chad Larson and company up there, Matt. I'm sending you all much love today. And Gary Hines and Reverend McAfee and Spike and all my friends up there in Minneapolis, St. Paul, sending you much love today. Let us talk about the Georgia runoff. What happened there? Wow, wow, wow. Barely 34,000 votes separate Senator Raphael Warnock and candidate Herschel Walker. And you've got a libertarian in the race. Libertarians tilt right. Will the libertarians' removal from this runoff, will that bode well for Herschel Walker? What about those of you who could still get registered to vote? Those of you who can still actually vote, people who might not have voted in this consequential election. What's going to happen? I tell you what, all bets are off and everything is on. So let's talk about this Georgia runoff, everybody, even as we look and try to figure out what's going to happen in Nevada. What's going to happen in Arizona? We don't know. We don't know. The balance of the U.S. Senate is what we are looking at. What's going to happen? What's going to happen with the U.S. House of Representatives? There's going to be a razor thin margin, which is going to change the politics of the aspiring Speaker of the House. Mr. McCarthy is now going to have to, according to many analyses, really negotiate with the right wing. I mean, he's going to have to favor them, the hard right, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How will that reset the calculus? Remember, in the lower house, that is where the power of the purse rests. So our budgetary priorities can be radically reshaped by the House of Representatives. I'm Santita Jackson. I want you to call me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278, and let us talk today about this runoff in Georgia, which is historic. You've got two black men facing off in the South. One who's the embodiment of physical might and strength, but also someone who struggles mentally, emotionally, someone who's alleged to have had, quite the past with women that involve abortions. But the evangelicals don't mind that with him. You got Reverend Dr. Raphael Warnock, who inherited, he preached for and was awarded the pastorate of the vaunted Ebenezer Baptist Church, the Church of Daddy King, of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. That's his pulpit. Theologian, public servant. And yet he is locked in this race with a man who is challenging his Christianity. Can't make this stuff up, everybody. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 73 degrees. It will be partly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 64 degrees, scattered thunderstorms. In the NBA, the Pelicans 115, the Bulls 111, 129, Suns 117, the Timberwolves. In the NFL, the Falcons will be playing the Panthers tonight, Thursday night football. In the NHL, the Wild 4, the Ducks 1, and Chicago will be playing the Kings. What about the Georgia runoff? Everybody, let's talk about it. We are still trying to figure out what's going to happen with the U.S. Senate, what is going to happen with the U.S. House of Representatives, what is going to happen, what is going to happen. Control of Congress remains undetermined as we are awaiting these results in Arizona, in Nevada, and in Georgia. Georgia is set for a December 6th runoff, everybody. Praying for our brothers and sisters down in Florida. Nicole, Tropical Storm Nicole, made landfall as a Category 1 hurricane just south of Vero Beach, Florida. The hits just keep on coming to this place. Ballot measures that will legalize marijuana are expected to pass in 2 states, according to CNN. Voters in Arkansas, North Dakota, and South Dakota rejected measures that would have allowed certain amounts of cannabis possession and recreational consumption for people 21 or older. But CNN projects that in Maryland and Missouri, measures will be approved to legalize recreational marijuana use. We're going to find out from you one day what all that means to you. You know, we've been talking about financial freedom and really getting some space. People are really struggling. 1 in 4 Americans will not have Thanksgiving this year because they cannot afford it. They can't afford the turkey. They cannot afford any of it. Wow, that's where we are. And but there is a way out of this financial malaise that many of us find ourselves in. And I want you to reach out to Team Hochberg. If you are using that debit card, you need to get a credit card. You say, I don't have sufficient credit. Team Hochberg can help you to develop a plan so that you can get a credit card and get up off of that debit card. What about massive credit card debt? Don't negotiate with those credit card companies yourself. Let Team Hochberg do it. They will whittle down your debt. Do you want to buy a home? Do you need to refinance your home? Well, you need a plan. And you need people who have access to the financial institutions, who understand the financial products that can pull you out of debt. That is who and what. That is who Team Hochberg are. That is what they do. I want you to call them at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or visit them at 56david.com. They will help you. Tom and Sonia, you've heard me talk about them. They had 2 kids. Their mortgage, they were about to lose their home. They had 17 credit cards, $100,000 worth of debt on those credit cards. Well, guess what happened with them? Guess what happened? They reached out to Team Hochberg, had a free consultation, and then when they got back together with Team Hochberg, they came up with a plan to eliminate their credit card debt. They were able to lower their credit card payments by over $2,800 a month. They saved their homes. They were able to get them an FHA loan. That could be you, everybody. It could be you. You are but a phone call away, but an online visit away. And if you don't have access to the internet at home, go to the library. That's right. You are but a step away from financial freedom. Call them at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or reach out to them at 56david.com. Let's talk about this race in Georgia. Wow. Raphael Warnock, 1,941,499 votes. Herschel Walker, 1,906,246 votes. They're not even separated by 35,000 votes. And then you have Chase Oliver, 81,000 votes. Chase Oliver could be the margin of victory for one of those candidates. Some people say his people would favor a Herschel Walker, but we don't know that. What we do know is that there are thousands, tens upon thousands of people who did not vote, hundreds of thousands actually. And if you vote, you are the margin of victory for Raphael Warnock. Yes, you are. Or Herschel Walker. Hopefully, Raphael Warnock. So I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. What do you think about this race? Where do you think all of this is going? How did we get here? Of course, joining attorney Darrell Jones, Transformative Justice Coalition. He and attorney Barbara Arnwine have been in Georgia on the ground looking at the votes and the voters and the conditions under which they vote. We've got Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary, Rainbow Push, senior pastor of Douglas Memorial Community Church in Baltimore, of course. His immediate predecessor was none other than Reverend Dr. Raphael Warnock, the great senator from the great state of Georgia. And then, of course, attorney Mark Fancher, brilliant lawyer and author. I urge you to get his book, The Negroes of Friends Village. The Negroes of Friends Village. You're going to really, really love it. And I urge you to look for his writings online because he's absolutely brilliant, a brilliant essayist and analyst. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Let's get right to it. I want to find out what your thoughts are about this runoff. Are you surprised, Reverend Dr. Yeary, that we are here?
I'm not, well, I'm disappointed. I'm not surprised. Here's why I'm not surprised. Because of the way elections go in Georgia, it's not who gets the most votes, it's who gets the majority of the votes. You need 50% plus one. That being the case, what I see in the numbers is that Herschel Walker's numbers, his vote total, were actually tied to folks who actually voted for Governor Kemp. And so if we take that factor out, that Brian Kemp is not going to be on the ballot on December 6th, this time Herschel Walker has to stand on his own. And in a head-to-head contest with about 3 weeks or so to really kind of push the contrast between the two, and without having a third candidate for those who may not choose either one of them, or choose either one of them to have to hold their noses, it now forces a battle of real ideas. This is the time to set the contrast. And if we remember, it's exactly the formula we had 2 years ago when Raphael Warnock got elected. So it doesn't shock me because remember, they poured so much money into the Georgia media market to drive up the turnout because the Republicans really want the upper chamber, even if it's by the slimmest of majorities, because then they get to force the conversation around what comes out of the legislative side on the policy conversation, and they get to just fight and muck up the system and fight with Joe Biden for 2 years going into the presidential cycle. So net, I'm not shocked. Now the question becomes, what's the answer to the question, so what? The so what is let's go back 2 years ago. There was an expectation 2 years ago that typically runoff elections had extremely low turnout. That was not the case. That there was an expectation that folks really wouldn't be concerned about the runoff. That was not the case. And in the end, it turned out where those who showed up again determined what we were able to get in the first 2 years of the Biden administration. Did we get everything we wanted? No. But here's what we did get. We got American Rescue Plan. We got infrastructure. They keep forcing the conversation, trying to move policing, trying to move voting rights. Let's just be clear that if the Republicans control the upper chamber, that's not going to be a conversation. Police reform won't even come up in their lexicon. They're not going to have the conversation about voting rights, even though Mitch McConnell was on the record at the time of the reauthorization of the Voting Rights Act saying it was still needed in the country. So let's be real clear. This is not a personality contest. This is not about who you like. This is a policy contest. Who's going to speak to your needs? And I think in the end, though we did not get it on Tuesday night, we got to go get it on December 6th.
Amen to that. Attorney Mark Fancher, what about this runoff? Are you surprised by it? What do you read into it? Because, the unlikeliest of candidates, if you will, wink nod, would be Herschel Walker. He'd be someone, if he were a Democrat, he would have been routed out of the race by Democrats and Republicans. And yet the evangelicals, embrace it's not even a story, it's his words of redemption. And they have rejected all of the accusations against him. Now, in an ordinary time, I just say, take people and their personal lives, the people that they are intimate with and all that, take that off the table because I don't care about that. I want to know what your public morality is, not your private morality, because, people are a mix of a whole lot of things that we can be. But I do want to know, what is the deal here? Why do you think he's being so embraced? What about this? I mean, I think there's just so much that you can look at with this particular race, including race and racism?
Well, I always think it's a blessing when we are provided with information that helps us to make a clear analysis of where we need to go. And I think that this does. And unless a person is someone who's committed to the advancement of Raphael Warnock's political career, or they are Democratic Party loyalists, I honestly think that this is a situation that we need to move away from. We need to turn the page on it because it's a lost cause. And I say that because, it really depends upon what your objective is. If your objective is simply to get Raphael Warnock reelected, then no, there is still hope for that. But if your concern is the liberation of communities of color, really putting us in a position where we need to be, this becomes an incredible waste of resources and time to focus on this race. We really need to look at the fact that these election results show us that at least 50% of the voters in that area are people who are totally irrational, people who are committed to the MAGA mindset, if not the formal formations of that movement, people who really are beyond redemption from a progressive point of view. So you've got 50% of what would be Warnock's constituency who fit into the crazy category. And then you've got another 50% of people who are anywhere from reasonable to progressive. This is not a situation where the candidates were not known to the voters. An enormous amount of attention has been paid to both of them and who they are, what they've said, what they represent. And in spite of that, 50% of the voters decided that they wanted to go with the Looney Tunes guy, which means that even if Warnock wins this race, he is faced with spending time with a constituent in office with a constituency that's extremely polarized. And what options does that leave for him? Either he can dig in his heels and maintain his progressive viewpoint and act on a progressive agenda, and then face the same kind of situation in a few years where he's up for re-election and have to deal with the angry constituents who oppose him, and we're back right where we started here. Or he can compromise and begin to become yet another milquetoast black politician who accomplishes nothing, who stands for nothing. And in the meantime, all of us who are not so concerned about electoral politics, but about advancing the interests of our communities and our people, have invested an incredible amount of time and resources in trying to get that situation. I think we are much better served by focusing on higher priorities for our people. We're living in a dangerous time. We're living in a time where we run the risk of another red summer, where white workers who are panicked and who've lost their minds strike out in random and wanton violence against black people. The attack on January 6th, the attack on Paul Pelosi, that's a sign of things to come. And so when mass panic breaks out, what plan do we have for the security of communities of color? What are we going to do about that? In terms of our social and economic agendas that really increasingly can't be tied to the U.S. empire. What plans are we making for our survival and liberation? I think our time and resources are better spent elsewhere than on these kinds of races, which really represent no long-term future for us.
Call us at 773-763-9278. As I come to you, Attorney Darrell Jones, several people who've called in, Dynamo Dave, I'm going to get to you shortly. They've wanted to know, is it true that Georgia voters cannot vote without a runoff ballot? And is it true that the deadline for that was on Monday before the election? Have you heard of a runoff ballot?
Well, the runoff ballot really is referring to the runoff election.
Okay.
And the election that goes in the absentee ballots. Here's the kicker. Because of Senate Bill 202, that one that came in that had all that voter suppression legislation outlawing pizza and water and all that stuff that's in line, it also addressed runoff elections. and it shortened the time period for the runoff election to be held. Here's the short and long of it. Because of Senate Bill 202, it is no longer possible for anyone to register to vote in the runoff election. If you are not a registered voter right now, you will not be able to participate in the runoff election on December the 6th in Georgia. That's the impact of that. And, for the early voting part of it, we're not even certain when early voting will begin, because the way the legislation reads is that it's to begin as soon as possible. So we don't know what that means. There's no deadline that's written into the legislation as a firm date that the early voting must begin. But what is very clear, if you're not registered to vote in the state of Georgia right now, as of November the 7th, if you weren't registered as of November the 7th, you will not be able to register to participate in this runoff election, which really defines the pond of existence much more for both Raphael Warnock as well as Herschel Walker as to who are your eligible voters. So now you're going to be limited to people that are registered to vote before November the 7th and before, and those that actually didn't vote but are registered. So that's going to be your focus, is those that are registered and those that are registered but did not vote, those that voted and those that were registered but did not vote. That's going to be the entire universe of the possible voters for the December the 6th runoff. That's it. No new registration. No new registration. All those that are registered as of November the 7th, that's the world of existence for where they must now get their votes to win this seat. It's just incredible. It's another carryover of oppression and suppressive legislation that comes out of that Senate Bill 202, Santita.
Well, that's why Stacey Abrams' work is so important, everyone. And really the work of the Transformative Justice Coalition, the NAACP, Rainbow Push, National Action Network, all these organizations that are really down on the ground fighting for you about the vote, about your vote. It really does matter, because when you have the runoff, then you can see, oh, no, you can't. If you got inspired, Attorney Daryl Jones, Reverend Dr. Geary, Attorney Mark Fancher, you cannot get registered to vote. But I also agree with Attorney Fancher. We have to have a plan for not just surviving, but thriving that goes beyond these elections. We have to understand that our leaders, you elect officials. They're not supposed to lead you. They're supposed to follow you. Hello, get that right. They work for you. Okay. I'm not looking to be led by an elected official. I'm looking to be led by my pastor and by some other people, because, they also, they can give me some great advice. But, leaders can come out of elective office, but they need to prove that to me. They really do. And so let's make this happen, everybody. Get out and vote. But as we look at the vote, we also have to, beyond the vote, we have to have a plan that will get us equal access to equal high quality health care, decent housing, education, the vote. And this work is ongoing. And even if you can't do this every day, support organizations that do. Volunteer with them, give them your money, a penny, $1, whatever it is. Make sure you do that. That is the path forward. That is the path forward. So I want you to call me, everybody. Let's talk about Generation Z and the impact that they're having on the electorate, the impact that they can have when they get to Congress. Let's talk about this Georgia runoff. This is where you see voter suppression and how it matters. This is where you see the social issues and how they matter. This is where you see the kind of leadership that the majority might prefer. Who do we send and who do we choose? Back in just a minute. All right, everybody, let's get right to it. We're going to have Dr. Max Wolf coming on. We're typically here on Thursdays, and we're trying to get Latasha Brown. But you know what? We're on Facebook Live. Why don't you all speak? Tell me, when you talk about a plan, well, no, go on. I think I heard you, Kenosha.
I got to work on living that one down.
No, that's never going to happen. Yeah, I can tell you that right now.
Reverend Todd, I may need some Baltimore back to help me up to get down this, get off this.
Baby, that ain't gonna happen. You divided your voting time with Kenosha, Wisconsin, and Chicago. No, I'm just done with you. No.
Daryl, what did you do?
Oh, wait a minute. He told me, let me tell you what happened. He said, oh, Santita, I'm coming through Chicago. I said, oh, that's great. I can't wait to see you. He said, yeah. Because, we're on this tour. We're on this voter tour, this bus stop tour, whistle stop tour, getting people together with the vote. I said, okay. Maybe Chicago's one of the biggest cities in the country, right, Pastor? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I look on the list. I'm like, oh, they're going to Milwaukee. They're going here. And they're going to go to Kenosha. Okay. And Chicago on the same day. I said, huh? You're not going to give Chicago a whole day? Look, I've been salty ever since.
Well, Brother Darrell, you know what it says in the good book. If you just go on and confess your sins,
hallelujah,
He may be faithful to forgive you of your sins and make sure that you don't do that ever again.
That's bring some oxtails.
Gary translation.
And honey, he runs marathons. He doesn't need oxtails. Get on out of here. Yeah, I said it. Get on out of here.
On the point that Attorney Fancher was making about the use of resources, right? I hear him, and it's often that tension about where do we put our resources for liberation. And I don't think it's an either or. I think it has to be a both and.
Okay.
Because if it's not on the legislative reality, and here's what's actually going on, and you've got two lawyers on here, there are 30 pending vacancies in the federal courts coming up so far in the second 2 years of this term. And a lot of what the other side has been doing is coming up with specious lawsuits, trying to create test cases to see what they can get before a Supreme Court that is, to call them incompetent in some ways because of where the balance would offend incompetent people. And so there is no sense of judicial prudence when it comes to precedent, when it comes to principle, when it comes to interpretation of legislative intent. And so we really have to fight this fight on all fronts. If there were a single path to get us where we needed to go, we would have discovered it by now. And I think it would make the appeal of focusing our resources more clear. But what is clear is that we don't get the benefit of choosing which path is going to get us there. We've got to be diligent across all fronts, because until we get some clarity and some precision around where we're going, we found that many of these fronts, even when we've tried to move in a way that
Miss Jackson, we have Dr. Wolf and Miss Brown.
Legislation, it's met with coercion and intimidation. So
what was that?
Just be mindful.
Bring on with the music.
All right, stand by.
A path, there are multiple paths, and we got to do answer D, all of the above.
Amen to that. Stand by.
We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. What's happening in Georgia? We have spent a lot of time talking about Georgia the past few years. Georgia is on our mind. They got a December 6th runoff, even as we look at Nevada, even as we look at Arizona. For so many reasons, historical reasons, social reasons, political reasons, we are looking at Senator Raphael Warnock face off against Herschel Walker. And that means a whole lot socially, sociologically, politically. It does. And we're looking at voter suppression. that we outvoted, but it's still there. Or should I say we over-indexed in our vote, so we were able to mitigate it, but the rules are the rules. And so we need to talk about that on the Santita Jackson Show. Call me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. Let's talk about this Georgia runoff. December 6th is the date. You cannot get registered if you got inspired by this race. You can't get registered. Those are the new rules, everybody. That's right. You're going to have to wait till next time. That's voter suppression. Because they should have same-day on-site registration. Quite frankly, if the IRS can chase you down about anything, they ought to be. We should have automatic registration. I got my AARP card the day I turned 50. I was like, wow, who are you guys? Are y'all a government? I don't know. We have got, of course, Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary, Rainbow Push, senior pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church. Indeed, his predecessor was Reverend Raphael Warnock. And then, of course, we've got Attorney Darrell Jones, Transformative Justice Coalition, their chairman of the board. We have got Attorney Mark Fancher, brilliant lawyer. We cannot wait to hear more from him. And we have got Reverend Dr. Max Wolf, who is with us. Yes, I did make you a reverend. I know he's going to say, oh, please don't do that to me. God bless you. Say, bless me. He, of course, is a brilliant economist, and he's with us every Thursday.
Out my new authority.
That's right. My father's going to be so happy. And then, of course, he's with us, of course, every Thursday at 7:30 Central Standard Time. But Dr. Wolf, we have someone on here, Latasha Brown, Black Voters Matter, and I think today is her birthday. Jewel, let's hit it. Hey. Come on, I told her. I told Jewel. I said, yay, everybody, happy birthday. I said, it's the funniest thing, because guess what? Whenever we hear happy birthday to you, happy birthday. I said, no, but with Black folks, then we add on Stevie's version. That makes it official.
We always got to add Stevie's version.
Happy birthday, girl. Now, I don't know if you're celebrating today, if you're taking a respite, because I want to hear what Dr. Wolf has to say about this too, but you got to let us know what happened, what's going on down there in Georgia.
So, it is one, thank you for the birthday wishes. Ironically, I was supposed to be in Italy 2 months ago. I bought a ticket to go to Italy, and I'm going to rest after the election and XYZ. And I'm like, okay, that didn't happen, but we'll get to it next year. But I am going to take some time today, though. So thank you. But what happened in Georgia, Black folks did our part. And but what also happened in Georgia is white women, and even half of our Latino brothers and sisters did not hold the line. What I think around supporting democracy, and it's not the pass blame. It's really around just look at the numbers of what happened in the state.
Help me with that, because when I found out that 76% of white women voted for Brian Kemp in 2018, I said, wait. Y'all keep talking about Black men going to the Republican Party, but you're barking up the wrong tree here.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, that was one of my critiques. Part of what we've been hearing headline after headline is around Black men not coming out, that Black men were going to vote for the Republicans. But the truth of the matter is it was white women. That at the end of the day, that when you look at what happened in this last election cycle, white women overwhelmingly voted for Republicans in the state. Given the fact that health and reproductive rights, have been in many ways undermined in the state, that you have an abortion ban that initially they were pushing to have even a 6-week abortion ban, but they've made some provisions around that, but Kemp has led off of that. So here it is, a state that healthcare has not been expanded. There's 1.5 million people without healthcare, a state that the governor has led this horrendous voter suppression law, a state that he has led this anti women's choice space, all of those things, and white women even in voted against their own interest of just having choice, whether they believe in abortion or not, just having choice and having agency over their body, that didn't matter to them as it related to they wanted to go with with the Republicans, and that's what they did. And it is ironic because we didn't see any of those headlines. We kept seeing headlines about black men, and black men showed up strong, just like black women did, in this particular election. But we didn't see any headlines talk about why white women voting against their interests. But what I will say that what essentially happened in Georgia, one, black folks did the darn thing. I want folks to understand, not just in Georgia, but throughout the nation, this wall that held back this red wave, that was anchored by black voters. 92% of us voted. 92% of black voters supported Democrats. I don't want to hear Democrats say nothing about black voters don't like
nothing. Wait. Say that more. One more time. Nothing.
Nothing to us other than thank you and what can I do for you? And what can I do for you? I need two things. Thank you. And what can I do for you?
That's right. Shut up. Don't say anything to me because we did the thing. We did it. Now you need to have a family conversation with these women who are voting against their own interest. Now, I mean, because it's time for white women to step up to the plate, and y'all need to have an internal conversation and decide which way you want to go. Do you want to stay in that big house, or do you want everyone to have a house? What is the deal?
That's what
I just want to know.
And it's interesting because what we're seeing is single white women is a growing demographic, and many of them are also struggling. So we're seeing that in their community, and Bishop Barber talks about it all the time. Black folk there's more poor white people than black folks, but they push them to the side, right? And so ultimately what we see is these policies that you're supporting that have rooted themselves in racism, and you're not seeing, and white women in particular, have not literally aligned themselves or even supported an agenda that would actually support their own interests over and over, time and time again. So the part of the story in Georgia has been that literally we saw race be weaponized in this election cycle. What you also saw, and I think it's really good to note, yes, we're going into the runoff election, but let's be clear. Walker got 100 and I think it was 180,000. I'm looking for my notes right now.
Are the numbers on the vote?
Over 150 plus.
Okay, Raphael Warnock, 1.941 million. Herschel Walker, 1.906 million. Now that was as of yesterday.
No, the difference between Walker and Kemp, if I'm not mistaken, it's like 180,000 vote difference.
Okay.
Which means if you can look that up real quick, I don't have my notes. I can't find my notes, and I don't want to quote the wrong number. I know it's over 150,000. I think it's 180,000. I can't remember. But the bottom line is, there is a undervote for Walker that Kemp, for the most part, when people are looking at what happened with Walker, in some ways he rode his coattail, but there were over 100 plus 100,000 plus voters, Republican voters in Georgia that did not vote for Walker, right, in this election. So it's going to be interesting in this runoff to see what happens, because Walker is going to have to stand on his own, and we're going to see what happens in Georgia. What they should be upset right now. Somebody should be really annoyed, because what they thought is they thought that black folks were so naive that all they had to do was go pluck a man from an athlete, a well-known, effective, because he was effective when he was playing, athlete, pluck them out of Texas, move them to Georgia, and literally and put this face on it, create these narratives about black men and the black men being discontent, and prop him up as if he was going to be the savior of the day around that, and that black folks were going to flock to him. That is not what happened. We literally put our foot down, and Walker did not move us around black voters basically told Walker what we think about him, and we're going to show him again in this runoff election.
But he wasn't for us.
Cannot work and stand against us.
But wait a minute, honey, he wasn't
for
us.
For us.
No.
No. I never thought he was for us.
No. I'm saying, but he was not chosen for us. No. See, we have leaders, we have people who are sent to us. I'm just saying, you and I are just going to disagree because I tell you, I look at people who are sent to us. We have people we send to the establishment, and we have people who the establishment will present to us. And when I look at him, he was tailor-made. He excites white people. He does not excite black people, and they know it. They know that.
I don't think it was a matter of just hear me out.
Okay.
I agree with you that there was a frame around white people because particularly Trump liked him. The entire narrative about black men, that was literally a dual strategy that was part of literally thinking, because the truth of the matter, I'll be honest with you, had they ran a moderate Republican, I think they would have won that seat right out. So that part of the thinking behind that was that they were going to intentionally sift off black voters.
But I agree with you on that because skimming is part of the process. But where I think where you and I do find agreement is the stereotyping and the racism in choosing him, because they chose someone who on an ordinary day black people would not choose. We choose Raphael Warnock all day long.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, so I'm just saying, no. He's their joke, and that makes me very, very sad for him because this is a man who is struggling. Wait. Hold on. Birthday girl. I got Dr. Max Wolf here, an expert on white people, because he's one of them. I love you, Max.
I don't know if being a white person makes you an expert on white people. I'll give it a shot. I'm a reverend as of this morning. I had a spiritual epiphany, or you did, on my behalf, and pointed me to the title. So I'm going to have to be extra careful, what I have to say.
Well, I mean, but what do you make of what you saw, of what we're seeing in Georgia? I mean, because I think that, to be fair, I think that your analysis, Latasha, is spot on. I really do. I just think we got to fill in a whole lot of the pieces.
Part of it is, I think, a lot of people. Yeah, to me, I think the white women thing is interesting. I think it also breaks very interestingly about married and unmarried. So unmarried white women are the reason the Democrats didn't go down to a wave along with people of color, right? Married women break differently in a lot of these things. And in a whole bunch of elections, by the way, married women polled red with their husbands and then went to the poll and didn't do that, which is also kind of interesting. So I just think that's an interesting story. I also think if you look at the portion of younger people, white or black, getting married, it's tanking. So there's an interesting demographic directionality there too. And sure, look, I've told you this lots of times. Again, I don't think I actually have any expertise. I think I'm from a sort of marginal group, and I've only really ever lived in New York City, which probably you like to make fun of me about, but I just acknowledge that. But if I'm your beat of the heartland, we're all in trouble, right? You get the defibrillator. But to the extent that Brooklyn is the heartland, I'm a first-generation American living in Brooklyn, so I'm like a refugee, probably a crappy weather vane, But I'd like to be a good weather vane. I'd like to pay attention to what's going on. And if nothing else, I've never been accused of having an opinion that everyone's already heard before. So I think to me, the lesson of Herschel Walker is a lesson lots of times learned, which is if you ask a sexist person to find a woman, they'll always find a terrible woman. If you ask a racist person to find a black person, they'll always find a terrible black person.
That's a great mantra.
They don't like these people and they don't respect them, so they'll find a terrible one. For a long time, they would always find a terrible Jewish guy. The joke in the Jewish community, which I knew growing up, as somewhat of a member of the community, is they will find you a Jewish candidate sprung to life from a Nazi children's book. You'll try to figure out if you're ashamed of them or ashamed of you when you meet their candidate who they picked for you, right? So I do think that there's a point, though, which is that if you can break off pieces of certain constituencies, the electoral math is friendly, right? So if you can get unmarried women, if you can get black people, particularly black women, but if you can't do that, then black men or Hispanic males or Hispanic females, if you can get them to, you don't even need them to vote for you, by the way. You just need them to not show up.
Oh.
So they're disgusted enough with an election that's actually good enough. So obviously, if you can get votes to switch, this is true for anyone. This is the calculus, right? If you can get a vote to switch from someone else to you, that's obviously the holy grail. But you often don't need that. So and I think the bigger sort of story of all these elections, which no one tells, is a public that's lost faith in the process, right? And that doesn't think anyone represents them. Even when sometimes people do, by the way, they don't believe it, so they stay home. And that is the great success of Republican math. Because when people vote, they don't win. And they kind of know that. So poo-pooing the process and, sort of demoralizing and castigating public officials has become a mantra that really works, right? And I think there's plenty of folks smart enough on that side of the game to understand that picking candidates who are, again, I guess I'm going to be partisan here, revolting, is a way to get people to be revolted and stay home, right? Like, I think if you went to Spousal Abusers Anonymous and plucked the angriest guy in the room, you'd probably have a better leadership model than you're getting in a lot of these races around the country. Right? I mean, you just got people walking out of prison with a bag of stuff and a bologna sandwich. A lot of them would have a better anger control game. So I don't think you can get that lousy a group of people by accident. And while I may not be the voice of Heartland America, I don't think the average American is in great shape. I don't think they're that far gone. I don't think Ted Cruz's and Herschel Walkers are just growing on trees out there. You got to find them. That's effort.
Yeah,
by the way,
I hear what he's
back them with hundreds of millions of dollars too.
I hear. Let me just say, I hear and understand, and there's a lot of it that I agree with. There are a couple of points that I do want to make, and one I want to make that there is a voting behavior of white women nationally that is not necessarily reflective of voting behavior of white women in the South. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at Georgia, 73% of white women voted Republican, right? And that wasn't all of them ain't married. Right. That included unmarried women. That included women who were under a certain income. There is a certain factor, which is a pink elephant in the room, that we often, some of us talk about, but we're not really talking about. And that's how literally race will trump everything. Race will trump logic. In an election, race will trump economic security. Race will trump anything in particular states and in particular areas that we've seen it, and sometimes anywhere in the country. And so that has to be, we have to unpack that. The second thing is we act as if these races or people like Ted Cruz and others are outliers. In fact, they're not. They're mainstream. These are people who are very entrenched, have a tremendous amount of power. I mean, for goodness sake, these are U.S. senators. And at the end of the day, this is a man that actually went and graduated from Harvard. So he ain't no fool. He ain't no outlier. What he and others have done is that it has always been a mainstream element that has been rooted to, as I said earlier, has been rooted into race and being able to stoke white fear. And when we've seen that, the fear of the blacks and the other people that are now going to share power or take power, 9 times out of 10, we've actually seen that rally around. We've seen that kind of racism, not just on the outliers with Trump, but we've seen that in the highest offices, including on the Supreme Court in this country right now, that is literally using their power. The majority is using their power to even weaponize the law to actually support racism in terms of gerrymandering, to support racism in terms of discriminating. They're actually talking about will possibly even knock down affirmative action and other efforts that we know have actually opened up the space for communities of color and women in particular. So I say that because I think it's important for us to recognize that is not an outlier anymore. That is not on the fringes. What we're seeing happen right now is mainstream. Now there's a response, and it's being driven, quite frankly, by young voters who are rejecting. That's why we didn't see this red wave. We saw this red trickle. We didn't see this red wave. But let's be very clear. The middle is now what used to be the fringes on the right has now become the centrist position. And unfortunately, we see the Democratic Party sometimes respond to that. But we have to recognize that, yes, there are a few outliers. there seems like a few outliers. I'm not sure they're outliers. I think the things that they say, they would not have said before Trump. I think Trump did open up Pandora's
He opened up the
box,
door.
where this whole notion of he opened up the door.
That's
So
all.
the bottom line is the policy and the positions have always been there.
That's right. This is the feeling. I've got another minute for you.
I agree that they're mainstream. My point's a bit different, which is if you send someone to do a certain kind of task and it's dirty enough, you start to get a very adverse selection in who does the task. Right? So I don't think the mantra has changed much. I don't think these are fringe people, right? So Ted Cruz is a multi-time reelected presidential candidate and senator from the state of Texas, right? Which I'm aware of. But there's a story of the declining candidate quality that's being missed. Right? Which is, if you send people to do something dirty and nasty enough, it degrades them and you get adverse selection in who signs up for the job. And I think you're seeing that. And that sometimes can be a limit of what you can get away with the electoral politics. I think the other kind of elephant in the room here is, for a lot of people, this election was about whether or not we're going to continue our limited experiment with democracy or not, because a lot of people are unhappy with the results or unwilling to concede the result, having had a basis in some kind of fair process if they're unhappy with the outcome. I think that's a perilous moment too. We faced it before, but we certainly face it pretty aggressively right now.
Well, you know what? I know we have.
I agree with the
I got
premise.
a minute.
Can I ask just a quick question? Because I agree with the premise. I'm not so sure I agree with there's a decline in candidate quality. I think what you're seeing literally no boundaries, because who we're talking about? We're talking about DeSantis. DeSantis would have been competitive even if it was 10 years ago. He's raised it. Who we're talking about? Are we talking about Cruz? Are we talking about Abbott? Are we talking about, because these are mainstream Republicans. Who are we talking about? Now we're talking about Oz. You know, at the end of the day, those are people who literally would have been candidates in the Republican Party. What we're seeing is a devolving in what they're saying and their positions, and being outright and out front and being willing to actually lead from the space of race and appeal to these dog whistles. But the truth of the matter, if you see the candidates, and we're seeing the quality of the candidates, these are the same kinds of folks. There are some people that are outliers, but for the most part, these are the folks that the Republicans have always ran.
Well, but I think at the end of the day, like you said, we're having an honest moment. My cousin said that to me. He said, finally America's having an honest moment. The quiet part is being said out loud. So, that's why I don't blame Trump for this. Has he added some more fuel in this fire yet? But it's been here. It's been here. Now the question is, where do we go from here? Chaos or community? Dr. King asked that question. I want you, Attorney Jones. I know you got to run, and I know you, Reverend Dr. Uri and Attorney Mark Fancher. I know you all have to go, but if you all would stay with me so I can get some closing thoughts from each of you. Dynamo Dave, in fact, has been waiting for us. I want to get some closing thoughts from you, because I think that we have to continue to carry this conversation forward. Latasha Brown, looking at changing the headlines. Get off of black men. Some black folks are going to be Republican, and that is their business and that is their right. These are parties, not plantation systems. People need to do what they need to do. It is all I ask anyone is that if you're going to fight for black people, if you as a black person are going to go to the Republican Party and in the Democratic Party, by the way, also, because there's some other black folks who've not fought first inside the Democratic Party and they're current. I'm asking you to stand up for the least of these. That's my point. When you get in the room, are you going to fight for me? Otherwise, you're worthless. I can't wait to be with you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. God bless. Latasha, hold on one second. Are you still there, birthday girl?
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Yeah. Okay, something is strange happening to my phone, so I'm not sure.
Miss Jackson, I put on Dynamo Dave from Minnesota. He's ready to go for the live.
What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I have a caller from Minnesota.
So I'm here. I'm literally getting ready to leave. I appreciate the comment before. It's just the point. There's a certain mediocrity white men being mediocre is nothing new.
Mm-hmm.
That has always been a particular kind of standard, and they've always been perceived as electable based on who they are. I mean, let me not remind folks, Bush was the president. So you talk about standard, right? The standard of like what standard? Let us not forget that Ronald Reagan, who had been an actor, like wound up being the governor, wound up being Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like there has always been a space that assumes that white men are actually prepared and that they are electable candidates, even when they're mediocre.
Well, wait a minute, hold on, because he didn't wind up. He was wound up. The establishment saw him, and the establishment saw this movie star, Hollywood, which is very connected to the government anyway. And they said, we're going to create something. We're going to have an experiment. We're going to make him a corporate spokesman. We're going to bring this B-list actor out of Hollywood, make him a corporate spokesman. And really, we're going to make America familiar with him and his wife and family. We're going to forget about Jane Wyman and his other kids. No, he's just got a lovely this first time been married and all that. We're going to push that smoke on America. And then we're going to send him to banquets all over the country so people will get to know him and hear his voice. And then we're going to try to run him for office. Might not work for the first 2 or 3 times, but eventually it will, and it did. And then you know what? We're going to make him a voice of the extreme right. But because he's so likable and he has so much training in Hollywood, this just might work. And they bought him a fabulous home, him and his wife a fabulous home. Got them the most fabulous clothes, got their kids in the best schools, the right schools, and voila, we had the greatest wealth transfer in the history of the Republic under Ronald Reagan. This is the game they play. I'm saying, please, these folks have got a plan, Latasha. A plan. A plan. So, Latasha, are you still there? Did you have to leave yet, sweetie? Because it is her birthday. Well, am I by myself now? Attorney Jones? Attorney Fancher?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. What do you say? Because I know you've heard a lot. Max, you still there? Reverend Yuri? Yes. Mark Fancher? What, Attorney Jones, what do you... we've heard a lot.
We have heard a lot, Santita, and I'm going to have to go, but I want to say this one thing.
You mean you have to work today? Okay.
Every now and then that gets in the way.
You got to go to Kenosha.
You're not helping. I think I'm going to go to Mark Fancher now. Mark, I need your help. But one of the callers that actually had called in a little earlier, Cynthia, that was talking about the special runoff ballots, and I think that probably what he was making reference to was that if folks are overseas or in the military, because of the shortened time frame, they did send out a special ballot for them that they, along with their general absentee ballot, that they would have to send back in if there was a runoff. That's the only thing I could imagine they were making references. So I wanted to be certain that was clarified, that if there's some type of special runoff ballot, that's the one that he must have been referring to, not the one that would be applicable for people that are currently living in the state of Georgia and in the state of Georgia, because they're overseas or in the military. That there is a little, almost a ranked choice ballot. It's very interesting that they sent off. But I did want to make that clarification, so that
everybody else didn't get a ranked choice ballot.
Everyone else would not have gotten a ranked choice
ballot. How does
ballot.
that work, Daryl? That's crazy.
It's part of that new Senate Bill 202 on voter suppression, and the question is, how do you get it back in time? So it'll be very, very interesting to see how that works out. But along with their general ballot, they were sent a what I'll call the ranked choice ballot with who might be on the ballot for a runoff election, for them to be able to make make a voice and have a vote. And again, it's one of those, such a convoluted little bill that they've created. It's just confusing. It's just very confusing. But But that's what they have in place, and that's what we got to live with. So, if you're not registered in Georgia at this point, go find somebody who's registered and ask them, encourage them to go vote. But you yourself will not be able to vote. And if you know someone that's overseas or in the military, you need to encourage them to go try to find that ranked choice ballot that was sent to them with their general ballot and send it back in now.
Would they be able to go to the American embassy if they're in another country and get a ballot? What would they do?
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer off the top of my head. Because,
no, but tomorrow, can you find out? I mean, really, because I want to know, how do you vote in this runoff? Because you're giving me a lot of different, not you, but you're giving me information. It's like, okay, the general public, they don't get ranked choice, but if you vote by mail, you get a ranked choice ballot. That's strange to me. It's like, because that's different ways of calculating your vote.
There will probably be the Secretary of Defense's level. So the Overseas Voting Act is actually overseen by the Secretary of Defense, not by the Secretary of State.
So what should happen, Reverend Dr. Uri?
I think if you reach out to whoever has that responsibility at the Defense Department, they will give you, I think, some clarity. Each state has an obligation to meet certain standards that are set. Congress has identified the Secretary of Defense as the point. And so I think someone at his level should be able to get some clarity. You may not get it right away. It may take a couple of days for them to run it down, but they should be able to tell.
Okay, if you're out of the country, whom do you reach out to?
Probably, if you're out of the country on military assignment, it would be somebody in your chain of command, right? So,
what if you're just a regular citizen?
Company commander,
right?
If you're a regular citizen,
a civilian,
then it could be, if there is consular access in the foreign country where you are, somewhere at the consulate or the embassy level, will be able to help you. But the administration of that election process under the Uniform Overseas Voter Act is in the Secretary of Defense's purview. But yeah, you can call the embassy. But if you're on a military base out of the country, somebody at base command level should be able to tell you.
Okay. Attorney Mark Fancher, is there anything else you want to add or say? You might have had to leave. Okay. Dr. Wolf, Reverend Dr. Wolf.
So, Reverend Wolf, lifeologist here. So, other than just trying to get comfortable in my new expertise, which I'm very excited about.
Oh, if I have to say this. Let me say this, because Max is one of my dearest friends in the world. This is something.
You're going to lower your stock here.
Oh no, we have laughed. I just already had to X-nay someone out for. I will not tolerate any form of discrimination or racist talk against anybody. I don't play that here. Yeah. So don't you dare come on this chat line and talk about any religion, any race, anybody, unless you're saying something lovely and wonderful. Otherwise, you will be invited to leave. I will cut you out of here. I promise you before God I will. I don't do that here. We don't do that here.
I wish more people were like you.
Well, no, I'm not playing. But yes.
Look, I think just in terms of the candidate quality, not to loop back there, but I think I'm not disputing the point that a lot of mediocre white males have gotten there. In fact, that's probably the preponderance of leadership the country's ever had. Would probably be mediocre, right? But I mean, I think I'm like a lot of people in fondly having a new appreciation for yesterday's mediocrity as more than you could hope for. So just because it used to be mediocre and it wasn't meritocratic does not mean that it cannot get worse. And it has. Okay? And you have people that would be asked to leave a Waffle House in Congress and the Senate. Right? So I'm not talking about mediocre intellects or underwhelming achievements or bad ideas. Those I take for granted as part of my birthright for my leadership. I'm talking about a decline from that lofty height into a place where you're trying to just talk about a very unfortunate cut of folks. And I think that tells you something about the job. Everyone likes to think that the people have these defects and it's separate from the job. I think that sociology and history and economics teach us that's not true. Our jobs affect us quite a bit. And a nasty enough job where you ask people to do something that we kind of all know on some level, most of us, we shouldn't be doing, it will attract the wrong crowd and bring out the worst in folks. I think that might be a more interesting question than how this one got through or that one got through, although those are individually interesting. When that many people get through who are several cuts below the historic norm, however good that was or wasn't, that is telling you something about the job these people are being sent to do. And I think the general way American politics is viewed tells that story too, which is being a politician is a dirty, sleazy thing where your real job is to raise money, and it's not something you do if you have any other way to make a buck. And I don't think it's good for us as a society, whatever ideological beliefs people have, to have our political leadership, which is very actually important and has a huge role in dictating the course of our lives and the success or failure of those lives, to have that type of selection process. I think one of the sort of revelations of the last few years is something has happened there, right? And it's probably worth taking a look at because I think it has to do with the job. And that job is leading this country, right? And we can make as much fun of these people as we want or talk about their defects, but that's the leadership that we all have. And we're all in the buff watching these fellows grind the gears or decide to go up around the bend in the reverse.
What, Dynamo Dave? Dynamo Dave, are you there, sweetie? He said he was holding. Okay. Well, do we have...
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Dynamo Dave, what's on your mind, sweetie?
Hey, how's the sunshine of Illinois doing?
Oh, you know I'm just in love with Dynamo Dave. I love it. I'm doing fine. You make my rays just shoot through the sky every time I hear your voice.
Hey, I have to say, your guests today have been phenomenal. Every one of them's raised so many good points. And to that woman, one female, I think it was her birthday.
No, Natasha Brown. Yes.
But yeah, she's the one with the birthday. And she's the one talking about the white women in the South.
Yeah.
Maybe don't vote their interest. Well, if you remember, there's a quote by the guy who's kind of one of the founders of the Republican Party, Abraham Lincoln. Hold on one second. I'll get the quote. Just one second. Let's see. He said, the philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of the government in the next. So that means those women came from very conservative school districts, right? And are you there?
Oh, yes, of course.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, and as you well know, I'm so proud of Generation Z in our school systems. That means that our school systems throughout the country, many of them, have been teaching kind of a progressive agenda or whatever you want to call it.
No, I don't think that they have. No, because that's why critical race theory is under attack, which is, I don't think that's the best name for that. What you have now with the Summerlees and the Maxwell Frosts, you see people who see through the system. They see the flaws, and they are willing to take on the job of reform, which I think that's what you're seeing. Because we don't teach people to think as much as we teach them how to perform. And I think that's part of the tragedy of the American education system. Because we don't even encourage free speech. We shut people down. We have a cancel culture. It's all crazy. So, but I do have a lot of hope with people who have been able to come through their experiences, Dynamo Dave, and they want to make a better world. They want to make not just a better world. I think they want to make the world right. I think that's a wonderful thing. I think that's exciting for me, Dave. Dynamo Dave.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And hey, I wanted to add to the history you brought up regarding
former President Ronald Reagan. His wife, Nancy, her father was a top executive at GE, which was one of, I don't know about now, but one of the number one defense contractors in America. And we have this corporatocracy, as you well know. And so her dad is what kind of convinced the other executives at GE to bring in this guy, this actor, because he did have a certain amount of charm, and groom him, doing GE theater and all the rest.
That's right.
Anyway, yeah, I know. And that's the guy his movement, that conservative movement, is what wrecked our higher education funding, because they had that free speech movement in Berkeley, and he said if they don't cut it out, there's going to be blood in the streets. Blood in the streets just because they want free speech. And he, through whatever the means that us conservatives did in California, they used to have free college in California if you could pass the exams, the entrance exams. And so, today, we got all this debt, all these people that are suffering, trying to pay back on a debt. And if they had the same education as my parents had and stuff like that at the same level, they wouldn't be in this debt. They'd be able to buy homes and all the rest. They wouldn't be in the shape they're in today. And so I don't see why these conservatives are so, with that over 51 cents on every dollar for the federal government goes straight to the Pentagon.
Well, but I think that in this time, Dave, I think that we are now, I think, Dr. Wolf, you would agree with me, people are now willing to look. They're very curious. And I think that's what gives me hope. The conversations have been started. We are now looking at the corruption in the system. Some of us are looking at it from the right. We've always seen it from the left. I just think that we have to look at it and decide that we're going to go another way. We want a system that is free of corruption. We want a system that gives equal opportunity and it allows people to be actualized. I mean, that's where we need to be. Dr. Wolf, are you still there? I want to get some concluding thoughts from you before we go.
I think you're probably right. I mean, I do spend most of my time trying to control the media of the banks, but when I'm not doing that, one of the things I like to try to figure out is what direction these things are sort of headed in. I think there's a general loss of faith in the system. Some of it merited and some of it highly manipulated. And it looks to me like those are on kind of a collision course. And that's the frame that I would use on some of these closer elections, right? And I think it's also on some of these more kind of bizarre debates we have, right? Like we have lots of debates about reproductive choice about just one procedure. The last time I checked, women have a myriad of health needs. And if you care about lives and babies, maybe it's not just stopping someone from having an abortion. Right? It's a bizarre conversation. And so why do smart people have bizarre conversations? Because they're more interested in what they can't say and don't say to each other than what they can say and are saying to each other. How do you have a big debate choosing between Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker? Something else is definitely going on. That's not a nail biter, right? And so there's obviously something else going on. I think even the sort of very strange critical race theory schooling thing, right? I mean, historically, you try to figure out what is the fact pattern of the history, and then you teach it to people because it's a lesson. And having a conversation with people about how you can't teach things because it makes them feel bad is very strange. But it hasn't been the frame we've ever had in how we talk about history. For a very good reason, it's a strange frame for the debate about what to include in a history curriculum, right? But I mean, I think there's probably something unsaid in all these things that's more interesting than what is said. Right? And that's what I'm trying to get at with the candidate quality. If you ask people to do an impossible, dirty job, you will get the wrong people and have a bad impact on them. And I think that's true in a lot of American life right now. I think that's also erupting. I think that's erupting in politics. I think that's erupting in some of the discussions about policing, too.
Oh, absolutely. 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 But, but that's why I think it's important to have these conversations and, quite frankly, to have them without filters, because this is how we get down. This is how, as one of my college hallmates used to say, this is how we get down to down. This is the only way that we can really, really deal with these issues is to have some honest, forthright, respectful conversations. They can get heated, but they do need to be respectful. And as I shared with you, I do not tolerate anyone being disparaged. We're not going to do that here. So don't even think you're free enough to have that here. If I catch it, you're out. And that's it. That's it. So I love Mark Fancher, are you still here? Anyone else still here? Anyone? Because I'm going to let you go.
I'm still just hanging out.
Well, give us some closing thoughts. Your thoughts, because I didn't realize you were still there. Because you got 10 jobs. Hello.
Yep, I'd like to go to number 2 in just a minute. Look, at this point, we've got to make sure that we focus on the rules of monopoly. Rules of monopoly come down to we have a runoff election in Georgia on December the 6th. That's going to determine who's going to be in the fight for what public laws are enforced, what public laws are created, how public money is spent at the federal level. That happens all up and down the ballot, right? The truth of the matter is that while we spent a lot of time talking about the big shiny thing in D.C., we still have a lot of analysis to do about what happened down ballot and how regressive these elections may have taken us when it comes to state laws with the Supreme Court that's going back to a states' rights frame in the interpretation of federal law. And so it really comes down to December 6th. If you're not registered to vote, you can phone bank. You can call somebody. If you're not in Georgia, you probably got some kinfolk down there that you can call. And they may be real kinfolk. They may be play kinfolk. We all got aunts and uncles and aunties that we ain't figured out how they got to be related to us. We need to call everybody and then stay alert, because to Daryl Jones's point about the runoff, the early vote for the runoff election being established as soon as possible, that is so vague. I think it would probably create a constitutional issue that we just need to challenge in the courts. We need to challenge that legislation because it is not actionable. It is subject to any number of interpretations. But in the meantime, we've got to stay alert so that when they go live with whatever the early vote is, we're ready. Because at the end of the day, remember, Herschel Walker is not a commodity. Herschel Walker is being used as a tool. He is being used as a tool to represent particular interests of which Herschel Walker has no stake. But because they give him attention, which gives him relevance for what would otherwise be an unfortunate story of somebody who had great skills but went to the USFL and did well in a league that's now bankrupt and forgotten, that this is the way that he finds now public attention. And they're exploiting his need, much like we saw with Trump. It's very interesting. Someone who needs to be adored, no matter how ignorant their presentation might be, is now literally one runoff election away from being amongst the 100 in the upper chamber of the legislative branch of the United States government. Not whether or not you think he was a good player. He ain't even supposed to be anywhere near. He cannot really interpret the pains of those who are most vulnerable in a way that would adequately make him a stalwart. Doesn't matter if you like his politics. He does not have the requisite skill set to stand on either end, but yet they will use him as a tool. Tommy Tuberville, a tool. We're seeing this as a trend because they represent the interest. He's being co-opted, and if he gets co-opted, then we get co-opted in the process. So call your kinfolk, call your folk, call your friends, and tell them, look, stay alert. Don't go to sleep. What did young folks say? Stay woke.
Stay woke.
Because look, if you don't stay woke, you may be restless for the next 2 years because there's some craziness that they're going to try to come up with.
Stay woke. These kids got it, Max. Stay woke. Get up and wake up, everybody. Remember that by Teddy Pendergrass? And the Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. Wake up, everybody.
Sleeping in bed.
Come on, no more backward thinking. Time for what? Thinking ahead. I mean, that's they had some great songs at that time, but I mean, that's it. Wake up, everybody. No more sleeping in bed. No more backward thinking. Time for thinking ahead. The world has changed from what it used to be. We don't have any more time for hatred or poverty. Come on now.
My mama didn't record it, but she sang it regularly.
Come on now.
Boy, get your butt out that bed and go do something.
Do something.
It was a top 10 hit in our house.
Absolutely.
Get your butt out the bed and go do something.
But you know what? It was also a top 10 hit in the culture. That's where the culture was at that time. Right?
Absolutely.
You know, and about waking up, about making a better world, about making the world right. And we have that obligation right now. We have that obligation, and we have the opportunity. Reverend Dr. Yeary and Max Wolf, Dr. Wolf, we have the opportunity. And we
stripped of my ecclesiastical title there.
Well, I was about to give you another one.
So I was just stripped of my ecclesiastical title. It's kind of rough.
I'm about to give you another one. Look, you have a baby who understands angels. That's why I'm trying to help you out here. That's right.
Yes, strangely, I have a very devout child. I don't know how that works. But, okay.
Because she's a baby, and one of the most decent human beings I know is Max. So just be quiet, Max. Just hush. That's right. He's very logical, everyone. Very logical. Very logical. But we love him, and I love you all, and I'm really glad we were able to have this conversation today, and I want us to continue it because I think that these are the conversations that I think we need to have in the culture, and this is emblematic. What we're talking about, it's all of what's happening in the culture, even your reactions to it. What's happening in the culture, and I think that we have an opportunity here to make. There was a wonderful calendar years ago, I Dream a World. Well, you have an opportunity to make the world that you dream of. We have that opportunity and we have that obligation. We can make it happen, everybody. Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. I love you, everybody. I love you, Reverend Dr. Yeary. I love you, Dr. Max Wolf. Jewel, love you. Who else do I have there? Dynamo Dave, I love you. My sunshine.
Thank you.
Thank you, sweetie.
Thank you. I love you too. I love your show. I love all your guests. I love your audience.
Thank you. Well, you're part of it. You're one of the morning stars. Come on, Dynamo Dave.
Well, thank you. Hey, I just want to say one thing.
Of course, sweetie.
And on the left or whatever, wherever we're at, we got to use precise language because there's people on the right, like Adam Carolla, he's like one of the number one podcasters. He's a conservative guy, very funny man, but he's a conservative, and he uses certain logic. And he says, and he came from a underprivileged background. His father was abusive to him, and so forth. And when we use the term white privilege, we got to really look at the definition of privilege. It really is white advantage. Your guest had said that white men don't have to work as hard to get to, these positions like politician and stuff, and that's very true. People of different pigmentation than white have to work that harder to get into various positions.
Well, white men with a high school diploma.
That's an advantage. That's not privilege. That's an advantage.
No, that's also privilege. I disagree with you, Dave, because that's also
privilege is driving privilege. Privilege is like a driving privilege.
It is a driving privilege.
I'm just saying we lose the argument with people like the right.
I think Adam Carolla is funny. He's nice. He's fun, but he's not had the experience that my brothers have had. And I know the data proves that a white man with a high school diploma has more and he can make more money than a black man with a college degree. That's the data. That's what's out here. That's true. So, and I hear Adam Carolla because you know what? The thing is, if white people would wake up and understand that the system was not designed to help them either, then, we could put a lot of these issues to rest. Because unfortunately, white people think that they have that the system has been pushed in their direction. But the fact is, you were not allowed, if you were not a person of property and if you were not a man, to vote. You didn't matter. You were an indentured servant. And they racialized slavery to keep us apart from each other. So, when poor white people come to me and say, hey, I don't have privilege. Yes, you do. Walking in the door, you do have privilege, and you have an advantage also. Now the question, now if you understand that, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to say, I'm going to end that? Or are you going to be like white women and say, well, you know what, I'm going to take this little piece that I've got and I'm going to vote with it. Because that's my objection to not all white women, but so many. And it's not just white women in the South. You know, everybody wants to lean on whatever advantage they've got, whatever privilege they've got. It's just not working. And more, it's not working in America. None of this stuff that has worked before Dynamo Dave is working now. And Dr. Wolf and Reverend Dr. Erie, it's not working anymore. None of this stuff is working anymore. It's not working anymore. You can't tell Summer Lee what she can think. Her response has been to this dark money that has come after her. Look, I'm a black woman who has been marginalized. I have been mistreated. I have had to overcome a lot to get here. So whenever I see people all around the world who are in my position, I'm going to fight for them. I'm not going to fight against somebody else, but I'm going to fight for them. And you're not going to make me not do that. So, you know, I
agree, but I apologize too.
No, you don't apologize. I don't want you to apologize. No, Dynamo.
Well, it's a bad moment to leave. Max,
Dynamo, don't apologize. I want you to participate. And I want us to rigorously debate and talk with each other. I don't want you to apologize. You have nothing to apologize for. You are my friend, my brother, beloved, and I'm so glad that you're part of this family here. Okay? Dynamo?
That wasn't me apologizing. That was one of your other guests.
Yeah.
I didn't apologize. That was one of your other guests said that. But no, I hear you loud and clear. I agree with you. I'm just saying as some of these conservatives, they take you at your word, and then they say, "Oh, well," like in the case of Adam Carolla, talented, brilliant comedian, he's using logic, and he's saying, "Well, I didn't have these advantages you should." No, back to.
No, wait, and I'm using logic too, but I'm gonna tell you what I'm not going to let Adam Carolla and people like that do. Let me say this to you, Dave. I'm not going to let them control my conversation or my narrative. He can say he can say whatever he wants to say, and he could look at life the way he wants to look at it. All of the data proves that the lighter you are, the better you have in American society. And guess what? The Hispanic community in Cuba, in Florida knows it because that's why they're white people and they vote that way. But then they become brown when something else comes up. And I'm tired of that. If you're going to be white, just go on and be white because your politics are white. That's why Castro kicked you out. And I got a Cuban narrative because my grandmama used to work there when she was in her youth. Okay, she chopped sugar cane, picked beans. She did all of that. She was a migrant worker. She was poor. And she was in that part of the country when there were no borders then, in the 30s and the 40s. And she said when she was in Cuba, Dr. Wolf and Reverend Dr. Erie, my grandmama who you met, Reverend Dr. Erie, she would never discuss her youth. She said, when I was in Cuba, I was little more than a slave there. Because my grandmother, not my father's mother, but my mother's mother was a very dark-skinned woman who looked like she was straight off the west coast of Africa with a gap in her teeth and all of that. So she didn't have the social mobility that my father's mother would have had. She could have just gone into whiteness and been done with that. So, when these Cubans get to Florida, it's the white ones who have taken over Florida politics and they have become very, very white. And you see it because Florida is very right wing. And I'm not going to back down off of that. Bring it on. Talk to me because I got a narrative too. And I'm not going to let all these people with all of their experiences change how I frame mine. No, not doing it. Next. So I love you all. We're going to go so I can get on with my day. You all can get on with yours, but I love you. Max Wolf, are you there? I love my Max. I love my Reverend Dr. Yuri. I love my Dynamo Dave, and I love all of you morning stars. I love you, love you, love you. Okay, so you know me. I've got to get on with the day. I love you, Laura. How you doing, sweetie? Oh, thank you so much. Now, everybody, like and share this show today. Okay, we've got a whole lot of people who've been tuning in. So I'm going to let you all go. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. And let's keep this going. Let everybody know about the show. Continue to let people know. More and more of you are doing that, and I really appreciate it. And let's get to it. Let's make America and the world not just a better place. Let's make it where, the Lord's Prayer tells you that, what's already been done on earth really can't done in heaven. Should be happening right here. We've got a hell of our own making, and we just need to stop it. Just need to stop and go in the right direction, not in another direction, in the right direction. I love you, everybody. Cannot wait to be with you. I got to run. Have a wonderful day. Love you,